April 11th. We'll start with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. Adoption of the agenda.
A couple things to add, don't we?
What's that?
We got the mark letter, and
Got the mark letter and committee member appointments.
where would you like to put
And that'll be under other business.
down below?
Yep. Good with it?
Well, I would like to add, remember the last meeting 2 weeks ago, I talked about having a consortium of committees for the, well, you were, I don't know if you heard it or not, everything was kind of crazy, but,
Well, you probably heard my eyes roll.
right, yeah, but just put a member from the,
Do you always want to announce it?
Yes.
Talk about it?
no, I'm just, yeah, so, but I'd like to put that in under other business as well. We'll talk about it then.
Other than that, we all set? Public comment? Nothing. Select board announcements.
I have one. You may recall that at the last meeting was a hybrid meeting, and we had public comment both in the room and from the hybrid source, the Zoom source. And I said I would follow up with constituent concerns about relating to the HCTV. I did follow up with that individual, and consequently, with that, and talking with administration, I would like to recommend that I work with Christy and Terry on developing a letter to the board of HCBC regarding the concern about responsiveness to public query, and also include some information in that about our upcoming review of the MOU and the amendment that we would be drafting for this year. And to move that into a timely way so that it's done earlier in the year than it was last year. And that would be a draft coming back to us in 2 weeks
Okay.
or so. If everyone concurs with that, we will go ahead.
Yep, fine.
Okay.
And I have one. It's a good announcement. Fidium Fiber, who had originally wanted to only cover Harpswell, in our original discussion with them, has announced that they will cover the entire town with high-speed fiber optic internet access. 2 gigs up and down is unheard of speed, so soon to be available in Harpswell, all over the place. That's it.
That's it? Town administrators report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. I'll be brief because I know we have a lot of people in the room tonight, including FEMA representatives, so I'm really looking forward to getting to that place in the agenda. I do want to mention that Mike Drake, our fire administrator and emergency management agent, and I met with the DOT and the contractor who's been selected by DOT to work on the Cribstone Bridge project. That is a company out of Massachusetts, New England Infrastructure. They had their pre-construction meeting here at the town office this past week, and they're going to start very soon. They're coordinating through Mike Drake to make sure we know when there might be lane closures at the Cribstone Bridge. They'll be very limited, is my understanding. They're going to always try to keep basically a 9-foot lane available, but there may be some exceptions to that. So this project is starting right away, and the completion date is May 18th. Most of the destruction to the Cribstone Bridge, no surprises, on the east side of that bridge. They didn't think that there were many cracked stones, but a lot that need to be repositioned. And there are up to 12 available granite blocks to replace anything they find that they're not already aware of that's cracked. Currently, they say only 2 significantly cracked granite stones that need to be replaced.
That's
So
going to be fun.
anyway,
Like to watch
they're going to
that.
start working Monday through Friday. They can work up to 7 days a week. again, they're under a time crunch to get it done, so maybe as things get closer to that end date, we'll be seeing them there 7 days. But anyway, I think it's good news that that's getting started and should be completed fairly quickly. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Consent agenda. I believe Jane has something she wants to take out of the consent agenda.
Right,
Take out
before
of
we
it?
move, I'd like to take out number 4, Oars Island, for a brief discussion.
Okay. So otherwise, I will move that we approve the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes, and accept the planning board resignation, which is Al LeGros, and I would like to accept that with regret and a tremendous amount of thanks for the work he's put in. Community garden use of special revenue funds, and acceptance of the Maine Coast Heritage Trust donation, which is in lieu of property taxes, and authorization of the warrants.
Second.
All in favor?
Hey,
Planners update.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you have a bunch of things in your packet, and I'm going to go through them quickly.
It's hard to believe.
That is not nice. We're on public here. One of the things that's in here is the chair, in his capacity as liaison to the Affordable Housing Working Group, suggested that group put together some ideas for what a permanent housing committee might look like. In your packet, you have a draft that they worked on, which mirrors pretty much what was done when the Resiliency and Sustainability Committee was created. I don't think that's on the agenda for action tonight. Is it, Mr. Chairman?
No.
Okay, so it's there, it mirrors it. I think the biggest discussion among the working group was how many people should be on it, and they left that up to you. Secondly, in your packet was a memo from the planning board about the state law that was passed a while ago that changed the height, the way height is measured for structures in the shoreland zone that are within the flood hazard area. You may remember there was some discussion previously with the planning board. You sent it back to them. There has been discussion with legal counsel. The planning board has come back with a, I guess you would call it, recommendation that the language of the new state law on how height is measured not be added to the ordinance at this point, but instead that citizen notes be added to the definitions addendum, shoreline zoning ordinance, and the basic land use ordinance, where there are height provisions that are there. And so that's what this does. This is sort of, I would call it sort of a no man's land issue, because the citizens' notes are not part of the ordinance, and there's really no provisions that I'm aware of as to how things get added. So it got sent to you to say, do you want to add them? Do you want to have any process for adding them? And if so, we'll do that.
Well, I think that the select board does have the authority to do something as simple as that without going through town meeting. But I don't know if we want to do it tonight. I think that we could put it on our agenda for next time.
Okay, that's fine.
But I think it ought to get done.
Yep, this is just sort of to update you.
Yep.
Okay, number 3 is sort of an update on where a number of things stand. And I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. As you know, the Affordable Housing Working Group has been working. They've been fine-tuning their recommendations as a result of the comprehensive plan public hearing last night. They will probably fine-tune some more in our meeting next Wednesday to do that. We've given you the stuff on the Housing Committee. There are a number of ordinance amendments that can be or need to be addressed at special town meeting. The major one that has a time frame on it is the adoption of the new floodplain management ordinance and the revised flood maps. The planning board will hold a public hearing on those on the 24th of this month at the school. There will be an open house at 5:30 with the planning board meeting following at 6:30 to hold public hearings on them. The idea of the open house is that if people want to come in and look at the maps and see how their property may have changed or not changed with respect to the floodplain, they can do that. There are a couple other ones that are in the works. There's a recommendation from the planning board to add a provision to the site plan review ordinance to allow the code enforcement officers to seek outside assistance in overseeing large-scale projects. This came up with respect to like Lobster Lane, where there will be a lot of underground work being done and being buried, and the possibility that there's a need for a second set of eyes or third set of eyes to keep track of a project like that. It applies only to larger scale projects. There's provision for the applicant, the builder developer, to pay for that outside assistance. Second is there are two proposed amendments to the basic land use ordinance from the Affordable Housing Working Group. One that cleans up the provisions for accessory dwelling units in spite of what a lot of people think the town already allows ADUs. We call them ARUs, accessory residential units. This would change the terminology to ADU and clean up the standards for it. And the third is one of the recommendations that's in the draft attainable housing report, which would allow an existing single-family home to be divided into two dwelling units as long as the number of bedrooms in the two units is not more than what's in the single one. And those two amendments to the basic land use ordinance from the housing attainability report will also be on the agenda for public hearing on the 24th, and then presumably you can decide whether you want to put them on town meeting warrant or not. There is sort of a right to fish ordinance that's, I'm going to call it, rumbling around. Citizen initiated requests came forward for the town to adopt a right to fish ordinance. In agreement with the submitter, we sent it to legal review. Our legal counsel identified some concerns with it or things that needed to be cleaned up. And the chair of the select board is involved in discussing how we might go about that and what the time frame on that would be. Okay, Mitchellfield Boat Launch. I think everybody knows the story on that. GEI has been working to, I guess you would say, resolve the delays. It turned out that, much like me, that the GEI email system sometimes says no, you have to do something else before it will send the email. And apparently, some emails that were being sent to DEP actually were never sent to DEP, were sort of just sitting in the outbox waiting for the right click to go forward. I think they're moving forward. The one thing I did say in here is that Dan Bannon from GEI has been very open about saying they can do the engineering, they can do the cost estimate, they can do the site plan review, application and approval, and they have given the Army Corps and DEP everything that they've asked for, but obviously they don't control the timeline of either of those agencies for acting on it. But Dan has assured me that he's on top of it. Let's see. The other thing that's part of that is before the Maine Department of Transportation will allow us to go to bid, we have to sign a certification that says the town has the funds available necessary to complete the project if the bid is within the range of the engineer's estimate. As you all know, we discussed a couple of weeks ago the issue of cost inflation. I've asked GEI to both look at are there value engineering things that can be done to reduce costs, not by eliminating or changing components, but maybe doing things differently than the way they were originally spec'd out. And second, to give us an updated cost estimate based on 2025 construction so we know what we might be looking at in terms of funding. Okay, I'm going to keep going on a couple other things quickly. Water conservation. This has been sort of a pet issue of mine in that there really are two sides to the issue of water use. One is what you take out of the ground, and the second is what you put into the ground. And the Conservation Commission did a lot of good work a year ago or so on it and sort of slowed down. And I think they are going to look at doing a big thing this summer on water conservation. Where does water come from? What is LID, low impact development? And I think you'll be hearing more from them directly. Secondly, and I think this may be where Dave Chipman was going with a new item, was discussion at the Energy and Technology Committee about solar and energy needs for the various buildings and projects that are ongoing, and the suggestion about whether it would make sense to look at things like how three-phase power is provided. Is there a possibility for solar? What would it mean? But rather than doing it project by project, town office, HVAC, recycling center, possible fire station, to think about them more as a campus project. So I think Dave may be talking more about that. The sustainability plan that you all adopted a couple years ago, town has made a lot of progress on it. We've gotten, I think now 4 grants to do various projects, most of which have very low cost to the town. But that game is beginning to change. The most recent Maine Department of Transportation grant said if you want to do planning, you had to put up 10% local money. If you want to do construction, you have to put up 70% of local money, and they'll give you 30%. And I think as the recent storms indicated. Planning is great, but the town may be facing the decision of, does it want to move forward with doing things both at some of the boat launches, docks, and the roads, and those are going to be expensive projects, and so this is sort of a FYI that's out there. With respect to the sustainability plan, we're supposed to re-up with the state GoPIF partnership in the next few months, I think is when it's due. And that means we're going to have to update what the town's priorities are. I don't think that's a big deal, but it's something that should be on the radar screen.
You've been working
Questions?
on a lot of things, Mark, haven't you?
Comments? Well, actually, I'm going to say something. You know, you all know it. I'm not sure everybody in the town knows it. There are volunteers on all of these committees who spend an inordinate amount of time. Mary Ann is back there somewhere in the booth, and I think serves on maybe 3 or 4 of the committees, the Conservation Commission, the RNS Committee, the Housing Committee, E&T, you can go through the list. And so, you know, my job in some ways is more contact and shepherd than doer, and there are good things and bad things about that. Anything else?
I don't think so.
It'd be tough to do it without you, Mark. That's, you know, it'd be really
No, it
tough to
won't.
do it.
I'm going upstairs.
All right.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Nice job.
All righty.
Oh, they're all coming with me.
Yeah, wow. Quite a fan club.
Something I said?
Gosh, I mean, oh.
That was just us. All right, we have a FEMA update.
Yes, so I really want to thank the contingent from FEMA, and maybe SBA is here also tonight. You may not realize it, but I think you do, that there has been a recovery center opened in Harpswell. It is serving Cumberland County, but we are really appreciative that it is in Harpswell and that our residents and constituents have easy access to it. I want to recognize Christian Medina. He was one of the first folks associated with FEMA that popped in to see Mike Drake, emergency management agent, and myself to introduce himself and to begin the conversation about how we could work together to serve people, provide information about the resources that are available. So I really appreciate that first contact, and it has led to some really good things happening. And so tonight, we really wanted to have these folks come to the select board meeting and talk about the resources that are available to people in Harpswell and throughout the county, and I don't know, it might even extend beyond Cumberland County, actually, so you can talk more about that. And I also want to thank Mike Drake. He's been a great liaison between the town of Harpswell and FEMA and county emergency management. There's a lot of communication going on, a lot of emails, a lot to keep up with, so I really appreciate what Mike is doing to keep that conversation going and open. So very helpful. Christian, would you like to start things off and introduce your team?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the members of the board. My name is Christian Medina. I'm the FEMA Division Supervisor for Cumberland County. And first, I want to thank you all for extending the invitation for us to participate. We have FEMA specialists that will briefly speak about the programs that are available, and we will start with individual assistance. Sam Harvey.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sam Harvey. I work with FEMA as part of the individual assistance team. Really appreciative to have you all invite us out here tonight. The idea is to provide an overview of FEMA's individual assistance program, get a sense of how it works, what assistance might be available to folks. The Cumberland County hasn't had a major disaster declaration that included individual assistance since 2008. So this is new to a lot of people, hopefully new to many of you as well. So I'm sure there are a lot of questions as you go through, and I'm just happy to try to provide that overview. For FEMA's individual assistance, you'll hear a little bit more about public assistance later. Individual assistance is focused on homes, so homeowners or renters, folks that had impacts from the storms, specifically the storms that occurred between January 9th and January 13th. Any damages that occurred outside of that aren't what we're looking to cover at this point. It's also focused primarily on the envelope of the house, so the four walls, the roof, the floor, and the major components that make a home safe, sanitary, and functional. So your HVAC system, if you have a private well, private septic. So those are the types of aspects of the home that we're trying to provide assistance for. Unfortunately, things like seawalls, docks, sheds, yards, things like that tend not to be covered by FEMA assistance. Again, we're really looking at the things that are required in order to make your home habitable. There are three types of assistance that a survivor might be eligible for. The first one is what we call rental assistance. So if folks are displaced, they can't live there because of the damage, FEMA provides assistance to be able to help them find a temporary home to rent, so if they don't have to pay their mortgage and a new rent each month. So that can be for a homeowner. It can also be for a renter if they were displaced. The second type of assistance is more specific to homeowners. So those are, it's assistance for repairs. So fixing the drywall, fixing the carpet, the roof, whatever might have been damaged during the storm. And then the last is for your personal property, your stuff, your living room set, dining room set, if you lost clothes, if you lost a vehicle. Any of those things might be able to be covered by the types of FEMA assistance. There are a number of ways to apply. The first thing, if somebody had damage, if you're not sure you had damage or you might have had damage, then I would encourage people to apply. The deadline to do so, to get your first application with FEMA, is May 20th. That's the last date that someone can submit an application. You can start this process by either calling the FEMA helpline, which is 1-800-621-3362. That's also 1-800-621-FEMA. It's easier for me to remember. You can also go to disasterassistance.gov. That's disasterassistance.gov. With your new 2 gig internet, it's a perfect opportunity to get out there and do that. That'll also allow you to create an online account so you can receive information, you can upload documents, you can keep track of all that from your own account. We also have, as it was referenced, a disaster recovery center that's open here in Harpswell. This is the one that's serving Cumberland County as well as any of the adjacent counties that want to come here and avail themselves of those services. From a disaster recovery center, you can sit down face-to-face with one of our FEMA representatives. You can apply, you can ask questions about your case, you can get updates, what's happening with my assistance. You can also upload documents or get things printed off there. So we try to bring as many of the services that you might need to go through your application into the community so that it's more readily available to folks. You also might encounter some of our disaster survivor assistance teams out in the field. Those are FEMA employees. Their job out there is to provide information about FEMA, about the programs, and to help people register. They can do that right there on the spot. So a number of ways to get the application in. As you go through the process, one of the first things that you might encounter is a phone call from somebody from FEMA identifying themselves as a FEMA inspector. This is going to be your first opportunity to meet with somebody at your home, at your damaged dwelling, to show them the types of damage that occurred so that we can start to get a sense of how much was damaged, which individual items were damaged, and start to figure out what assistance might be, for which you might be eligible. Pictures, videos, receipts, all of that stuff is great to have. It's not required, but it certainly is helpful. We also don't want anybody to delay. So if they have damages, especially if they're things that need to be repaired, I encourage everyone to make the necessary repairs, but again, document it, keep receipts, keep estimates, take pictures of all that work that's gone on. There's a lot, as you can imagine. This is a federal program, so questions are going to come up. If anybody has questions about how to apply, what's the status of my case, what do I need to do, there are very few hard stops for FEMA's individual assistance. It can be very frustrating if the process hits a snag because you're missing paperwork or you're missing some sort of document. But that's why we have all these avenues for people to get assistance. So we have a lot of folks here. They all want to get your folks to yes. They want to explain as much of the process as they can. So I encourage you to use them, to reach out. Let's keep them busy while they're here. So if there are any questions about individual assistance before I turn to SBA.
The private roads, we have a lot of people who live on private roads in Harpswell or private driveways. Is that addressed through the IA
Yeah,
process?
so private roads, yes, potentially they can be. So if it's a private road where that homeowner or even multiple homeowners are responsible for the maintenance of it, so they pay to get it plowed, they pay to get it graded in the summer, something to that effect, then I would encourage everybody on that road to apply and say, hey, I have damage to my private road. Some of the qualifications we're looking for is the damage has to be to the point where the road is not safe to pass for your personal vehicle. Emergency services can't get there. Oil deliveries can't get there. Those are going to be some of the levels of damage we're looking for. But if you're not sure, put in an application, start that process, and let us sort of figure out exactly where that falls. Unfortunately, for things like homeowners associations or road associations, those typically are not, because that is the responsibility of the association. That's why they collect dues and HOA fees to pay for things like that. So again, if you're not sure, put in an application and we'll figure out specifically whether you are or are not eligible. It also would apply if you are in an isolated area or if you are on an island and your only way in and out is through a dock. You bring your boat to a launch. If that was damaged, that's also something that may be eligible for assistance.
Thank you.
How was it as far as people coming in today?
I haven't seen the numbers this afternoon, but yesterday, which was the first day it was open sort of full time, I think we had 16 individuals who came in, which actually is really high. It's a small-ish disaster, and a lot of folks, especially in Maine, they tend not to avail themselves of this. We have a hard time giving away money. And it's noble. I can respect that, but we also want people to come in. So it's one of the higher numbers we've seen.
Well, it's all coastal here, it's just, everything's on the water.
So I just want to be sure, your location is here at the town office?
No.
No.
No, it's at the old
Forest
Forest
Island
Island School.
Schoolhouse.
Oh, it's a
Forest Island
schoolhouse.
Schoolhouse,
Okay.
Forest Island, yeah.
Thank you.
So that is, right now, that's open 7 days a week from 8 o'clock until 6 o'clock, 8 in the morning till 6 at night.
7 days.
7 days a week. And it will be open this Monday as well, even though it's a state holiday.
Great.
All right.
And we have a high number of second homes in town. Can you just cover what your definition of a second home is and what their availability for aid is?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for second homes, vacation rentals, anything like that, typically that is not eligible for FEMA assistance. I know there are a lot of people who do kind of 6 and 6, so it's hard to say what's your primary home versus what is your secondary home. Some of the things that we would ask, where is your driver's license? Where are you registered to vote? Where is your car registered? So a lot of those things can help lead you to, is this my primary home or is it somewhere else considered my primary home? Okay.
Yeah. I think we're good.
Okay. Well, thank you. Again, I will be available after if there are any follow-up questions. Now I'll turn it to our partners at the Small Business Administration to give you an update on their programs.
Hello,
Let me call you back.
Chairman and the members of the board. Thank you for having us this evening. And my name is Doris Evans, and I'm a public affairs specialist with the SBA. And SBA, we're part of the long-term recovery. Whenever there is a disaster in an area that receives a presidential declaration or sometime an agency declaration, we come in to assist businesses, homeowners, renters, and nonprofit organizations. And our deadline mirrors FEMA in regards to our physical damage. We have two deadlines. Our May 20th deadline, that covers business physical damage, homeowners, renters, and that also includes, if you had automobile damages, that also includes boats. That deadline is time sensitive. You can look at the damage, and it's visible. The other second deadline that we have is for our economic injury loan. That is our business loan. That is our business loan that's for working capital, and the deadline for that is December the 23rd, 2024. Why such a long deadline? Because sometimes it takes businesses quite a while to assess whether or not they need SBA, to assess what their loss is. So that deadline, is intended to give businesses and give communities time enough to be able to utilize SBA assistance if they need it. In regards to the types of loans, as I said before, we have the business physical disaster loan. And because this is a coastal area and there are boats, SBA, that loan will cover damages to boats. Also, businesses who lost machinery, equipment, and an inventory. And once again, that deadline is time sensitive, May 20th, 2024. And we have the economic injury loan. That is for working capital. That is to put money back into your business to help get a business, started up again. If they were forced to close, if they're not able to pay their vendors, it's one of the highlights, of our program. When we come into a community to try to put you back to where you are before, the economic injury loan, I can't say enough about it in regards to how it can bring communities that have suffered devastation, back to some type of normalcy. And we have the homeowners, our residents, our renters. And that deadline is going to fall under physical deadlines. And that deadline is May 20th. That is for if you have real estate damage to your home, loss of furniture, clothing, anything that's not considered to be the structure. It covers structural as well as personal property loss in regards to that, and automobile. And SBA is a credit-based program. But it was created to come into the area to help, so the terms, if you have the fact sheets, you can kind of glance at the terms, and if you have any questions before, that I leave, but a homeowner or a business can get up to 30 years to repay. The first payment is not due on a loan until a year after the first disbursement, so that interest is also delayed. And let's see. The other area that I wanted to talk to you about was mitigation. Okay, I can't say there were a couple of things while my partners from FEMA was talking that I kind of jotted down some things that I wanted to cover that I think will be helpful. Let's see. Our loan amounts for businesses, that's up to $2 million. That's for the physical, and you can also get up to $2 million for the economic injury loan. Homeowners are eligible for at least $500,000 for real estate damages, $500,000 for personal property loss. And because this area was flooded, and a lot of times if you do have insurance, it's not going to cover for any type of upgrades that you may need for mitigation. At SBA, another highlight of our program is mitigation, is that you're eligible to borrow 20% of whatever your real estate damage was. Let's say, for instance, your business or your home, you had maybe $100,000, worth of physical damage. You're eligible to borrow at least 20% of that amount to make the upgrades that you need to protect your property or business from any type of future disasters. And let's talk about insurance requirement. Insurance. A lot of times, our homeowners and businesses, they will have insurance. and they want to wait to see what the insurance company says. We encourage you, if you have property damage for your home or your business, is to go on and submit the application to SBA, especially for the physical side of it, because it's time sensitive. Economic, some businesses may have business interruption insurance, and it may take a while, for that to come through. And bearing in mind that it does take a while, and sometimes you are eligible and sometimes you're not. When it comes to regarding, I heard something regarding private drives that have been damaged. Okay, SBA does pay for, you're eligible for debris removal, trees. So if you have, in areas, that where you have, sustained that type of loss, then please, SBA is something that our program can help you with that. I also heard something regarding second homes. SBA does, we consider for homeowners, you're eligible for the home loan as your primary residence. But if you have a second home where it's like a rental or a vacation, you can apply for two things. If it's physical damage, you can apply for the physical loan to repair your property. If you're not able to continue to rent where you're losing money, you can also apply for the economic injury. And once again, that economic injury comes in there in the event that it takes you a while to get those real estate repairs up and running again. And let's see. In regards to SBA, we have it's called My Portal, where you can go online and you can create an account to submit an application, upload documents, and you can check the status. And I also want to encourage, we have centers. The SBA has business recovery centers, and we also are at FEMA's disaster recovery centers. We have staff on site, that have the expertise and the specialization, to help you. So I encourage you to help us get the message out to the community. The SBA is here, and there are 2 centers in Cumberland County. As was mentioned, one of them is the DRC, and SBA, we are there with FEMA, and then we have a business recovery center also. So I just want to encourage you to get that message, out. And we do have a 1-800 number, and that 1-800 number, they are open, they're Eastern Standard Time hours, so they're open, I believe they start at 7 to about 8 o'clock. The hours vary. But if you have any questions on the fact sheets, I'm going to leave some of the fact sheets, and hopefully we can get those disseminated out to the community to let them know that the SBA is here. And let's see if there are any, did I miss anything?
How about the interest rate on the loans?
Okay, the interest rates, okay. If you got the fact sheets here,
Yep.
okay, it indicates what the interest rates are. For the home loans and renters is 2.88%. Business loans is 4%, and nonprofits is 3.25%. They're eligible, nonprofits are eligible for the economic loss, and that includes churches, organizations in the community. And they're also eligible for, in certain circumstances, they're eligible for the economic loss. And there are 2, when we get to the business loans, there are 2 different interest rates there. Primarily, 99.5% of applicants, they receive the 4%. The 8% is for a business that really don't need SBA's credit, but they want to take advantage of the 4%. That's the best way to say it. Okay? And let's see. I think I've covered everything. Just want to, stress the deadlines, the insurance recovery, and coming into the centers, to get our assistance.
So a commercial fishing dock, if that was damaged, they would be potentially eligible for SBA.
Right. What they would need to do is submit the application, and since we do have our customer service specialists in the centers, I would encourage them to come in and talk to while they're submitting the application to include that. I always say submit the application, and see what type of response that you get. And after an application is submitted, depending upon what the loss is and the value of the loss, you would be contacted if you go through the application process and meet the standards. It would be you would get a call from a loss verification person that would schedule an appointment. We always encourage, because most people don't like to answer the phone with numbers they don't recognize, so that's one of the things that when we're doing outreach or when our customer service people are speaking, is always, if you've submitted an application to the SBA, then you need to be, checking. And I want to emphasize and stress, with people that apply for, with our disaster survivors that apply for the SBA, and if for some reason they get referred to FEMA, our homeowners and our renters and stuff, for them to really, follow through on those referrals. And let's see, I think I'm just about, and if there are applicants or businesses who initially apply, and they're turned down, there is a reconsideration process that's 6 months after they receive that decline letter or withdrawal, where they can, reapply to the SBA. A lot of times when SBA, right now we're trying to approve the people who meet that requirement right up front, what the credit requirements are. But sometimes there are businesses and homeowners who may, on a second look, introduce extenuating circumstances, where it may change things, and where, they really need that low-interest SBA loan to recover. They may be able to receive homeowners or renters assistance from FEMA, but it may not be enough, to really repair that home and to get it back to where it was before and make mitigation. So we really, encourage that if there is a decline in the beginning or withdrawal, is to call our customer service people, and while we're in the area, go into those centers. Any questions?
Not for me. You guys?
You didn't leave room for questions.
You did.
Oh, okay, years of doing it. Thank you.
Oh,
Have
no,
a good
thank you.
evening.
Good afternoon. My name is Bert Ventura, and I'm going to be talking to you all about briefly about public assistance, about what we can do. So public assistance provides federal grants for communities to respond to and recover from emergencies and major disaster declarations. So as opposed to the individual assistance, which is helping the homeowners, the public assistance is helping the municipal government, certain private nonprofits, recover from the disaster. Now, public assistance is available for debris removal, emergency protective measures. We consider that to be emergency work, and then permanent work. And that permanent work is for the restoration of eligible public-owned facilities. Now, it's a supplemental reimbursement program, public assistance, meaning that you all make the repairs, FEMA reimburses you for that. Now, with that, public assistance is subject to a cost share. It's a 75 to 25 cost share typically. FEMA provides, if something costs $100,000, FEMA would provide you $75,000. And normally, it would be your responsibility to pick up that 25% delta. Now, the state of Maine, you all are fortunate, most states don't do this. Maine picks up, out of that 25% that you'd all be responsible for, they pick up 15%. 15 of that. So you all are really only on the hook for 10% of whatever the damages are. And then there's ways that your program delivery manager will help you find ways to reduce that even further with donated resources, volunteer man hours and stuff like that. We can take that into consideration. So just to briefly give you an overview, emergency work, we break down the type of work that we do into categories, categories A through G. Categories A and B are what we consider emergency work. Category A is debris removal. It's all that cleanup that your city had to do, and your town had to do after the disaster. Category B, those emergency protective measures, that's your firefighters out there clearing a road, your police blocking off a road, telling residents not to go down that road, or rescuing someone who may have gotten stuck, going out to rescue someone in a boat whose house is inaccessible, by land or stuff like that. So all of that stuff, setting up an EOC, some of the ideas of emergency protective measures. Then we move into Cat C. Now we're moving into permanent work. Cat C is your roads, your bridges, your culverts, anything like that that was damaged. Category D be your water control facilities. Category E, public buildings, like if this building were to be damaged. As not only the building, but the contents also are eligible under Category E. We've got Category F, which are your public utilities. So a lot of these are sometimes like your rural electrical co-ops. A lot of small towns I know use co-ops for electricity instead of feeding off of the big power companies. And then we have lastly, category G, which is your parks, your recreational facilities, and anything else that didn't fit into one of the other categories. We pick it up in there. There's also, I'd like for you all to keep in mind, there's also a category Z, which is done after the project is done, and this is to help reimburse you for your management costs, your man hours to put these projects together and work with FEMA, because we realize that no one does, all of your staff, are getting paid. So all of this, so if a project is worth, let's say you were awarded a project to repair a road and it was $100,000 for that project per se, you'd be eligible for up to 5% of that project cost in administrative costs. So if you can show that you had, $5,000 in labor, to help get this ready, or to do the paperwork and work with us, attending meetings with FEMA, whatever, you would get reimbursed for that. So some of the big things I just wanted to highlight real quick is requesting public assistance. One of the biggest steps is attending an applicant briefing. And I know that those were ongoing. The state, MEMA
I
was.
think, Mike, you've attended that, right?
Yeah, so attending the applicant briefing and then submitting what we call an RPA, a request for public assistance. By the way, FEMA has more acronyms than the Department of Defense, which is difficult to believe. But yeah, so RPAs are the big thing. That's where you submit your application, just like you would with SBA or IA, where you're saying, we think we're eligible for public assistance. Once that makes it, the state looks at it, says, yes, they're an eligible applicant, and then it makes its way to us. Once we look at it, and if we say, yes, they look like they are an eligible applicant, we'll assign a program delivery manager who will walk you through every step of the process, all the way through obligation, all the way through getting funds obligated to you. Once those are done, the PDMGs will reach out within 7 days of that request for public assistance being approved. Within 7 days, a program delivery manager will reach out to you and set up what we call an exploratory call, where they'll talk to you. They'll just get a good handle on what your damages were and what you're looking at initially. And they'll schedule then within 14 days of that, within 21 days of that, a recovery scoping meeting, where they'll sit down with you and say, and they'll build out a damage inventory. They'll just look at all of the stuff that you've identified as damages. They'll list those all down, and we'll start building projects. And the projects are what we submit up to our consolidated resource center to get scoped and costed. And when those projects are completed, those are how we get money obligated to you. So those are some of the things we look at. With the PNPs that we talked about earlier, the private nonprofits, there's a lot of private, some smaller communities have a lot of private nonprofits that provide, critical services, i.e., schools. You have let's say a Catholic school that provides, K through 8 education. There's volunteer fire departments; those are all private nonprofits. They're all eligible. Sometimes community centers, hospitals, clinics, stuff like that. So we encourage any 501c private nonprofit to go ahead and submit an application, and we do have a criteria that we must follow, whether it's they provide a critical service or they provide a non-critical service. If they provide a critical service, they're treated just like the city fire department or the city government applying for a public grant. If they're a non-critical private nonprofit, they're still eligible for emergency work, that debris removal, the emergency protective measures, but any permanent work, they have to apply for an SBA loan first if they're a non-critical private nonprofit. So so they have to apply for that, because we wouldn't be able to help them with a private with a federal grant for permanent work without that. I think that we covered most of the stuff. I also wanted to introduce Ms. Carrie Gray. She's our infrastructure branch director. I'm her deputy. And we also have Ms. Ellie Canigo there. She's a group supervisor. And so she manages all the program delivery managers that are out helping your community recover. Are there any questions that I can answer for you? Yes.
Have we already asked them big questions about our damage in town here? Have we get that far?
Well, we have submitted a preliminary that was done a couple months ago, right? Our preliminary.
Yeah.
Submitted initial PAs for the damage, and I've applied for the RPA.
Okay.
We're a week and a half into it now, we have never back, so.
Okay, but you did submit an RPA. That's okay. It takes a little bit of time to work through the system, because a lot of folks need to look at it, the state, then us, and then once that gets approved, it'll move pretty quickly after that. We'll assign you a program delivery manager, and he's your one throat to choke. He's that guy that you go to when things aren't working the way you want them to. Yeah. So, yeah.
If we left something off the list, can we add to
Oh,
that list?
absolutely,
Okay,
ma'am.
so if you
Absolutely.
submitted that
Yeah.
and you.
Yeah,
okay.
what you all did a few months ago is, if I'm not mistaken, it's the preliminary damage assessment where we're looking at, but once we start scoping and you're working with that program delivery manager, you have, I believe it's 60 days to identify any damages.
Okay.
Even after that recovery scoping meeting, you still have 60 days to say,
Okay.
oops, we just
Yeah.
realized this. Oh, we were cleaning this up and we realized the footing on the building was damaged. Stuff like that.
Good.
So,
Thank you.
so yeah, you do have time for that. And with PA, we always, we try to always, as was mentioned before, we try to get to a yes. Our job is to get to a yes legally and ethically. So we're going to try and get to a yes always. Yes,
I
ma'am.
had a question. Your representative from SBA mentioned mitigation as being part of the program. Is that part of the FEMA program?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Lovely.
And when we have all of our meetings that we have, especially at the beginning with the recovery scoping meeting, our hazard mitigation representative will be present on that call and will explain the program to you all and say what is eligible and what we can do. Because they have a whole separate pot of money that can be used. If you've had, for example, something was damaged a couple of times in a couple of storms, you always, you're always having the same type of damage to a facility. We can look at that and say, why don't we build it back better this time? And just it's going to cost a little bit more, but if it makes sense, there is money for that to build it back better so that we don't keep fixing it every time you have a storm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions?
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. The deadline for submitting an RPA is April the 19th.
Oh,
Oh, my
So,
But we've done it. It's done.
yeah, you guys are in there.
And we
but-
can add to it, is what I heard.
Oh, yeah.
It's
And,
done.
yeah, but and
yeah.
if any other communities out there, private nonprofits,
Well,
encourage them,
The
tell
fire
them.
departments, the local fire departments, I don't know. Okay,
Yeah.
great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Great.
Submit them.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
impressive, thank you.
Anyone else, Christian? Okay. Thank you all very much. We really appreciate the work you do, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of conversations going on, so
Yeah.
thanks again.
Thank you.
Enjoy being in town.
I was going to say the exact same thing. It's
Not a whole lot
beautiful
going
town.
on.
Or raining.
And we have power.
Great.
All right.
Wonderful.
MSC, this 75 requests to use to Mitchell Field for a project graduation.
I think this is a similar request.
Yeah.
The
Right.
prior year.
Didn't it get rained out last year?
Something happened.
Oh, my gosh.
But rained all last summer.
Do you remember?
Probably did.
I'm not remembering last
So the
year.
question also that I have is that we closed the field at
That's
4
right.
o'clock or something last time. They'd
They're
asked-
asking for it to be closed again, all day, I think. Not all day,
Yeah,
Well-
threw 'em out by 9 or something.
yeah. They're asking for it to be closed again, David.
Right, so I'll just go over the highlights of what they're requesting. So, based on your policy, some of the exemptions that they're looking for would be that you do close the field, and their timeline that they submitted, they'd be arriving at the field at 4 PM. Don Miskell was key in helping get signage out there and people at the gate, so if approved by the board tonight, that can be worked out. I think it was earlier, between 3 and 3:30, just to make sure everybody is cleared out by then.
Yeah.
And that the field remain open longer until about 10 PM, at which time, they'll leave and we can lock up the gate. And a exemption of the fee waiver and authorization for their commercial fireworks display to be done, and the state fire marshal's office needs property owner signature. If you so authorize, you can authorize, if you so approve, you can authorize Christie to do that. There is one update to their application. They were unable to get the certified lifeguards that are familiar with Mitchell Field, so they will not not be having swimming, but all of their other activities will occur. And they so wanted to be here this evening, but something did come up.
Yeah.
And so that's basically, you've had all the information, and that's the summary of what they are asking for exemptions for.
Well, I will move that we approve this and that we close the field that day from 3:30 on and until 10, that we waive the fee, and that we authorize Christie to sign the authorization for the fireworks. How did I do?
I think that's it. Second, in anything else.
Oh, yeah. All in favor? Yeah.
Right.
Aye.
I know Leanna, actually.
I did want to say that the rules for Mitchell Field has pets under control from 11 to 1. It's supposed to
Well,
be from 10 to 4.
in theory.
Was that-
And it's
Well, that
still,
was the old time
That's the
frame.
old one. That's
That was the old
Good
one.
one.
yeah, so it's been modernized because it mentions the water tower on here as well.
gee.
That's not,
That is old.
Well, tell them they can't climb it.
right. So I
Should
don't,
be obvious.
there must be a newer, updated version of that somewhere.
We all set with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, consider reduction in transfer fee, brush disposal fees.
So this comes to you through the recycling center manager, Chuck Perot. And it's after we've had a couple pretty intensive storms that brought down a lot of limbs, branches, and people are asking whether or not this board would consider a reduction in the fee that the town charges for brush, accepting brush. We currently charge $175 per ton. It's an item that the manager has suggested could be reduced. He's not recommending a waiver. We've had people ask if the town would reduce the figure to 0. I think there are some area communities that are kind of doing that, but again, our manager looked at the situation and is recommending $100 per ton, which I think, again, serves as an incentive to hopefully help people clean up some of that debris, which is townwide. He's not recommending that it apply to commercial contractors, that they should pay the regular fee. So he's suggesting no more than 4 weeks. He's, provided some dates, but again, up to the select board. And this does not apply to really large,
Yeah.
stumps and limbs. It's fairly small. in the
18
scheme of
inches or
things.
less.
Yeah, 18
Brush,
inches or
yes.
less.
That's pretty big.
Yeah,
No
Well,
stumps at all. No
and
stumps.
no
at all.
stumps.
Sorry,
It's
thank
just the
you.
logs
No
would be
stumps.
18
Yeah.
inches.
yeah.
Well, I will move that between April 23rd and May 18th, that we reduce the fee for getting rid of brush for private people, not for commercial haulers. We reduce it from 175 to 100, and it remains at 175 for commercial haulers.
Second?
All in favor?
Thank you.
Just to emphasize that free dumping is not free.
It is not.
Somebody has to pay for it somewhere along the
Oh,
line.
yeah, I'm still getting the questions.
Yeah.
I give them a different answer every time. Park monitor for waterfront technician, job description, waterfront technician. Job description, advertising for hire.
Yes, so during, budget preparation season, the staff worked with the harbor master, and I think the town finance committee may have had some input. And we're recommending that, we develop this job description for a seasonal park monitor and waterfront technician. The seasonal park monitor is fairly similar to what we've had previously, that we would hire someone who would go to all our public lands and make sure that, people are following the rules, they're taking their trash with them, they have their dogs on the leash when they're supposed to have them on the leash, et cetera. But in addition, the harbor master recommended that we kind of call this position also a waterfront technician, and that this person could help that department with some of the waterfront-related activities, that might involve I don't know if we're talking about mooring removals potentially, or, just something a little more than just monitoring a site. So we'll see how this goes. It would be from Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday timeframe. Some flexibility, obviously, with hours, if we can find the right person, the right fit. Again, I think it can be a really great job for someone for the summertime, and they get to see all kinds of beautiful locations in Harpswell, meet a lot of great people. And, we had somebody that did a wonderful job last year, so I don't know if this person will be interested again. But anyway, we're asking the board to approve this job description and to authorize us to begin to advertise for the position.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
Thank you.
One little typo on the last page.
Oh, boy, you always find those.
Well,
All right, Ellie.
very, very simple.
Well-
Down, it's right there.
Oh,
Two words
oh,
run together.
oh, a space, okay.
No, not a big deal, but we need to look professional here.
I know, we do, absolutely.
All right, Old Townhouse contractor recommendation for painting and roof restoration.
Yeah, so, this one's been on our list for a while.
I thought Ken
and-
didn't want to do this anymore.
No, well, I mean, there's kind of a history here.
Okay.
So this was mentioned actually at last night's public hearing, the Old Town Meeting House at Harpswell Center, a National Historic Landmark. For a couple of years, it's been on our list to get it painted, get the shingles preserved, and we first put it out to bid in 2022. But we realized when we put it out to bid that the scope of work that we put out to bid really wasn't comprehensive enough, didn't include everything that we wanted done. So then we revised the scope of work, and we put it out to bid again in 2023. Most companies said that they plan a year ahead, so they weren't really interested in responding to our bid because they couldn't do it within the time period that we had specified, which would have been last year's painting season, which was short because of the weather last year.
Yeah,
But in any event, that bid came in at $160,000. It was way over the budget that we had estimated. So we started talking locally with the Harpswell Paint Company. The owner is Ken Beebe. He had previously painted the building a number of years ago and done the shingle work on the roof. And we said, look, we think this building is so important to the town that we really need to find the right contractor to do the work.
Yeah.
And we said that as an administrative staff, that we would recommend sole sourcing if we received what we thought was a reasonable bid for the project. And so he provided us with a figure of $60,000 for painting and $6,000 for applying the roof preservative. It's a pretty detailed scope of work that he provided us with. I think he's very capable. I think he has a great team. We would require all of the insurances that we typically do for a contract. And I think he said he thought he could get started in June. So we're here to recommend that you authorize me to sign a contract with Harpswell Paint Company, that you decide to sole source, and that it would not exceed $66,000.
Well, better him than me, I'll tell you that. But, so I'll read your motion.
Okay.
Authorize the town administrator to enter into a contract with Harpswell Paint Company for an amount not to exceed $66,000 for the painting of the building and for the application of roof preservative.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you. I drive by that building every day on my way to work, and I cannot
Oh,
wait
yeah.
for that building to be painted.
Doesn't
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, so that's
Needed it for
gonna
a
Wonderful.
couple of years now.
be a great project to see come to completion.
All right, treasurer matters.
Good evening, Terry Gaudette, the Deputy Town Administrator and Treasurer. Here for two reasons. As the board may recall, we sent out a request for bids for our short-term borrowing, our tax anticipation note financing, in an amount not to exceed $4 million. I did provide you with the results of the bids that were due today, no later than 4:30. The request for bids were sent out to 7 financial institutions, 6 responded. And despite last fall and continuing hopes that the Federal Reserve is going to reduce interest rates, it has not happened. There's still talk about a couple of cuts, but we are now seeing the highest rate that we have ever seen in one of our short-term borrowings, at least back to 2000 in the last 23 years, so 23, 24 years. Last year's interest rate was 5.13%. The board may recall, we ended up having to use contingency because that was also, until this year, that was the highest we had ever been. In 2023, we expended $58,000 on our short-term borrowing interest. This year, the lowest bid is 5.67%. That is my recommendation to proceed with the lowest. All the bids were comparable. That is the lowest interest rate. We've budgeted just under $56,000, $55,500. We'll obviously manage that very closely to the dollar to minimize our end result of our interest that we will be having to pay. The board does have $25,000 available in contingency. Let me run some interest numbers and project exactly which, obviously, on the 20th of each month, we have to pay $850,000 to SAD 75. So that funding is always needed with our short-term borrowing, but can manage some other expenses to try to minimize the interest rates. We'll come back to you with a recommendation of either just funding additional funds for contingency, which Christy and I had spoken about before. We specifically didn't recommend all the use of unassigned fund balance for different purposes that may come up, and this may be one of it to fund contingency. I don't think, let me run some numbers and see if it's additional funding for debt service or just contingency. But I am recommending that we have no choice. At this time, the board is well aware that your only choice in avoiding tax anticipation note financing is to change your budget year, fiscal year from calendar to July 1 to June 30th.
Yeah.
So you have been provided with a specific motion that needs to be made if you so agree with proceeding with Bath Savings Institution.
Sure. I'll include that in the motion that we go with Bath Saving Institution. And your motion is, I move that the vote entitled, "Vote to Authorize Issuance of a Tax Anticipation Note for Fiscal Year 2024 be approved in the form presented to this meeting, and that an attested copy of said vote be included with the minutes of this meeting."
Second.
I will say, Miss Evans' rates were much better than the banks.
Do you have any pull?
I didn't have any pull. In that case, all in favor? Yeah.
And
Consider it
secondly,
working capital.
Secondly, I'm here to report on the town's finances as of March 31st, 2024. Cash balances was $3.9 million. Outstanding 2023 taxes, just over $80,000. 99.5% of the commitment has been collected. The tax collector will be sending out 30-day notices in May, and then at which time they will be liened if they are not paid. Other year's taxes is just over $22,000, which also includes the liens relating to the 2022 unpaid taxes, which liens would be subject to foreclosure in December if they remain unpaid. Again, we're fortunate that that typically does not happen to Harpswell. On the revenue and expense item side, our non-property tax revenue available to reduce taxes is $717,000, just under 25%, which is where you want to be for 3 months of the year. Given that our single largest source of revenue, other than property taxes, which is excise tax, is following historical trends. Typically, the first quarter of the year is low for excise receipts, but we are just under 25%, so that's a good sign. Some of the revenues reflect more than a quarter collected due to the timeframes of their deadlines, specifically moorings and shellfish licenses. As far as our tower leases, we've received our first annual installment for the Mitchell Field Tower and for the transfer station tower leases, which both were increased, so that's nice. Interest, we had the bad side relating to the tax anticipation note financing, but we have dramatically increased our interest rate. Last year, we were able to increase it to 3%, which was still not satisfactory, but effective January 1st, it's now tied to the secured overnight financial rate, the SOFR, and we've been getting 4.56%. Still, not what we're going to pay for our TAN, but we've already collected more than half of our projected revenue for interest. We've projected $100,000 because we had not worked out our new interest rate as of yet, but we've collected over $50,000 for 3 months, so that's good on that hand. The 2024 budget was approved by voters on March 9th. Until that time, the town was authorized to spend an amount not to exceed 3/12 of the 2023 budget levels. As such, expending funds on new items or significant items was curtailed until after the budget's approved. Hence, you now see job descriptions coming forward. You're going to see requests for proposals for many of our definitely recreational items that need to be repaired due to the storms that have now been declared a disaster, and wonderful information we received tonight from FEMA and SBA. The 2024 reserve expenditures include a new vehicle for our Cumberland County deputy, an emergency capital road repair to Little Island Road as a result of the January storm, media room equipment, and engineering relating to Phase 2 of the recycling center project that we are hoping to pull together and out for bid and implementation next spring. And that concludes my report. You have received your monthly reports for January, February, and March. As you know, I don't often do a report for January, February because we've had the audit and things of that nature. So we'll be back to your monthly reporting. And as always, my door is open if there's any questions.
I noticed the franchise fee is only at 0.14% of projection forecast.
Because we don't receive our first payment until after June.
Yeah.
And so the reason why we received a small amount is we have to estimate the second quarter of 2023.
Okay.
And then it's booked into accounts receivable, and then we received a tiny bit more than what we had projected, so that gets taken into revenue for 2024.
Got it.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you. It's
Thanks,
great.
Barry. Accept donations. It's all yours, David.
See if I can thank Mary Ann tonight. Where are we? Next page.
13?
There we go. All right. I move that we accept these donations. John and Lorna Flynn, $300 for the heating program. Elijah Kellogg Church is $400 in food cards. Riley Insurance Agency, $1,000 for the bandstand. Maine Community Bank, $500 for the bandstand. The donation box is $191 for the bandstand. And let's see, for William Cheever, $20 for the Cliff Trail. So it's a total in donations of $2,411.
Is that a motion? Second.
All in favor? Aye. How's my old donation box holding up at the Cliff Trail?
I need to check with the rec director on that.
No.
It hasn't been replaced as of yet.
All right, public comment?
And I will note, that's why Mr. Cheever came in, because he enjoys walking the trail. He saw that the box is broken and was blocked off, and he said, I decided to walk in and do this, which was
Well,
much
there.
appreciated.
We should put a sign, bring donations into the townhouse.
We just need to get it replaced.
Yeah.
Good
We have a
evening.
public speaker.
I'm going to be a public speaker very quickly. I'm Mary Ann Naif, Conservation Commission. I wanted to mention that next week, Saturday, April 20th, is our annual town cleanup day and John Gillum Day.
Forgot
And
that, David.
And didn't get a chance to get out here earlier, but I wanted to let everybody know they will be able to pick up bags and also a little goodie bag. I believe David had arranged for pizza from Uncle Pete's.
Correct.
The other two areas where bags can be picked up are at Bailey Island General Store in Bailey Island and in Cundy's Harbor Watson Store. So that's next week, Saturday.
Holbrook store.
No.
No, Holbrook's isn't open. That was
Oh,
a
so-
problem. We re-updated the,
Okay,
yeah.
all right,
Yeah, we had their name down, and then they found out they were closed.
okay, all right.
So, so that's next week, Saturday.
And there's pizza lunch at 1:30 at the Grange Hall
Very good.
for the volunteers.
Okay, thank you.
All right, other business. We have committee members?
Yeah.
So, at your meeting on April 25th, you'll be reviewing and considering new applicants and reapplicants. But Board of Appeals fortunately, does not meet every month. There has not been many appeals. They do have a meeting this month in April, and it would be helpful to the election of their officers for 2024 to know who's continuing on the committee. There have been no new applicants for Board of Appeals. We have two current members whose terms are up and have reapplied. One is Kent Simmons, Ned Simmons, who has been the chair. He has reapplied and he would like to continue. And David Zanamorowski, an associate, and he would like to continue. So we're asking that you make these reappointments or these appointments. And even though their term doesn't expire until April 30th, just knowing who's on their board as of May 1st, they can make their motion for the year's election of the officers.
All right, I move that Ned and David be reappointed. Hello.
Second.
Wow.
I never bring my phone
You
in.
never do.
Maybe that's why.
I didn't even know it was in my pocket. You're gonna yell at David.
I know. I shut mine off because it rang during the presentation. So I moved and seconded to appoint Ned and David.
All in favor?
Aye.
Gravy. All right, and also the
What?
Friends of Rec.
What? The rec director?
The letter of support.
Oh,
Yeah.
for Mark, yeah, for the Mid-Coast Athletic
So, yes,
Recreation Complex.
I received a voicemail from Tom Farrell, the Recreation Director and Parks and Rec Director, I believe, in Brunswick this week. And he mentioned that the town had previously supported their request for congressionally directed spending. They put in a specific application last year. They did not get funding from that congressionally directed authorization. But they did go ahead, I don't know, again, how they funded all the projects, but they're building like 9 pickleball courts, and they've got some other things going on. And they're gonna have an open house in June for some of the new areas that have been constructed. And it's considered a regional athletic and recreation complex that
yeah.
Harpswell residents can use. And so they're asking the town of Harpswell to support another request for congressionally directed spending. They're applying for the 2024 round, and they would like the town to consider, once again, supporting their request.
Well, I move that we send a letter and authorize Kevin to sign it.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Great.
All right.
So then, the thing that Mark mentioned that I would bring up, here it is. The town campus here has several different buildings and things going on that, for energy needs and the work that we'll be doing on the recycling center soon. He thought it would be a good idea to have a representative from several committees, like energy, technology, recycling, town lands, and the emergency, what's that committee called? Emergency.
Which one?
Fire and
Fire
rescue?
and
Fire and Rescue Committee?
Fire and Rescue.
Is the emergency vehicle committee, so.
Yeah, yeah. So that we put together a group or a committee, if you want to call them, or a task force that is made up of an individual from each of those We don't have to do it tonight, but just give it some thought.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you could bring back a charge for the committee?
Sure.
Like we have for the housing, and
Yeah.
look at it.
Yep. And the other thing is that I wanted to mention was that at our last meeting, we had a fisherman ask to create a committee. And I suggested that we actually charge the Harbor and Waterfront Committee with that. And I've sort of, some wording, which you guys might want to think about, is to add to the Harbor and Waterfront's mission is to promote and support Harpswell's fishing heritage, preserve its activities, or something like that. So maybe at our next meeting, we can
Yeah.
put that on the agenda and make, finalize the wording for it.
It's important we get one more committee in town.
Yeah.
That way we can add a second page. to committees,
This would be part of the Harbor and Waterfront Committee, just be adding their.
If they want any part of it.
Yeah, I would just suggest that there be some follow-up with that recommendation from the public. It was very unclear to me as what the purpose they were suggesting that committees serve, and see if it's compatible with what you're recommending.
Well, they think the town doesn't put enough effort into supporting
Yeah, but-
working waterfront, so
Yeah.
that's,
I got an answer to that one.
But anyway, just to make, before we decide that that would be the solution, that we get some feedback from those who are interested, who brought the suggestion to us.
yep.
All right?
Okay, can I do one on the Oars Island Bridge?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just, let me find where that is. I'm looking at housing. I stuck it in here somewhere. Basically, you may recall that maybe 2 years ago, I don't know how time goes so quickly, the Town Lands Committee took on the question of the policies around the transfer. These are docks owned by individuals who built them, who put them there on town land, and the transfer, they were non-transferable originally, but the transfer, and I don't remember the exact details, but it could be transferred to family member who is fishing. Those docks could not be transferred for recreation, something like that. I think we asked the town lands to look at the fee, but they did not do so. In my assumption at this point is that we have not addressed that. The fee was zero to begin with, was $100, and has been $100 for I don't know how long, which is very, very, very minimal. It's just a token. So I would suggest that with administration, we look at the fee structure. We have essentially a multi-year lease with the property on Mitchell Field, so the lessee knows what the increase is going to be year by year. With our last meeting with Pammy's, we went from 17% to 3.2%. So I'd also suggest that administration suggest what kind of policy we have for long-term leases, and that make it clear to the lessee so that there are no big surprises, and that we have some rationale behind what that increase would be year by year. So if that's agreeable to folks, if we could look at that and see what you'd like to bring back to us.
Right.
Is that okay?
So what's your status on the renewing the leases for?
Well, unless it needs to be done, come back with a timeline for which you could do that. I would like to have a resolution of what we should do with the Oars Island Bridge this year, unless there's a need to sign them quickly.
Their current lease expires April 30th.
Well,
Yeah, that's why they're on our agenda.
might want to put it off for another year.
But I mean, we
We're
can
meeting
certainly.
in 2 weeks.
We are meeting in 2 weeks. I just don't know, I myself need some direction from the select board at what, because, 1 year, Christy and I did a lot of research relating to Pammy's lease, and then that was not received favorably. And, some changes were made, and so are we tying to market? Are we not sure? I need some direction. I don't know about Christie, but, and then typically whenever you do consider fee increases, you involve the stakeholders. So having time to notify these people, I don't,
I understand.
I worry about the
Let's do that.
timeline, but it's a very valid issue to investigate, and we did have it on the agenda for Budget Advisory Committee, and they're like, look, that's a market kind of lease thing with the select
And
board.
they declined to take it up as well,
Right,
yeah.
and I'll take responsibility for not having brought it forward to the select board sooner than, after that budget committee meeting. So I just wanted to express my concern about the timeline, about involving the stakeholders, excuse me.
Is it on?
It is now.
I think all those are very, very valid concerns, Terry, and points, so let's go ahead then with these, but make it a goal for this year that we develop a policy and that include the rationale. How are we determining the value? Town lands are valuable. My view is these are privileged positions people end up in, and that we've had very, very low lease requirements in terms of the financial side, and that we need to get clear about what our intention is so that we work through with you what that rationale would be. And that we go back to what you did on Pammy's, bring that back to us and see if we can look at that again, and if that's acceptable, follow that going forward.
A little bit of history. I was on the select board back 25 years ago when this was discovered that this was not state land.
Right,
It was
exactly,
town land.
exactly.
And these folks had their wharves there, and we actually had to move one of them from the east side over to the west side because it was dangerous for them to be stepping over the,
He's still mad
I know.
about that.
I know, but it was dangerous.
If we raise the rent, Terry's got to tell him.
Well,
Well-
I know, and I've always pushed to keep the rent low because these folks built these wharves there. I know that they're squatting on what now ends up being town land, but.
But $100 25 years ago is,
Yeah. And
Not
they-
$100
and they are required
today.
to have insurance.
that's true. That's absolutely true about the insurance.
But anyway, I'll move that we authorize the Oars Island Bridge Wharf leases, those two.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else down there?
Yeah, I wanted to ask the board if you would consider a workshop with the town's engineers next Thursday at 4 to talk about Peabody Road, just to get input from the engineers and for the road commissioner, administration, select board to be involved. I mean, eventually, assuming we may go forward, we would have an open house and
Oh, yeah.
invite
Right.
people
Yeah.
from Peabody Road. I mean, they're welcome to come to
Right.
the workshop. I don't think there's going to be any decision, obviously, a decision can't be made at the workshop, but maybe we can begin to give the engineers some direction about how the town is interested in moving forward on that project. And I think there would maybe be a discussion about sole sourcing here, potentially, if it was something we wanted to try to do this season. We could potentially save engineering costs by not having really detailed specifications, but perhaps using the company that we used to do Basin Point Road. That was quite a successful project. We know we have concerns on Peabody Road about, trying to slow speed down, so I think we need to be thinking about that, and maybe that topic will come up. And then I think the other one we'd like to cover that day would be Little Island Road. So that's one of the roads that was damaged in that January timeframe.
Right.
The town went in and did emergency repairs to the tune of, I want to say maybe $14,000.
Wow.
Because people couldn't access
right.
their homes, and they were worried about emergency vehicles. But that's not the long-term solution, so, I mean, it's going to work in part, but we've got to do some more work down there.
Right.
We didn't resurface the top of the road. We may need to get some permitting,
Need
I
to
mean, those
remediate.
kinds of things. So I think those two items come to mind as top priorities, but I don't know, Terry, if you can think of something else there. We did get a report from the state recently about the Bethel Point Bridge, and they just pointed out a few things that they recommend the town do, so that may come up as a point of discussion too. So I just wanted to make sure you were all available next Thursday at 4, and we can meet here and
Great.
I never
start
go
that
anywhere.
discussion. Okay. So
I'm
we
done.
will advertise that. Thank you.
All right.
It's possible we might want to start at 3:30 if we think that they need more than an hour, because it was really just going to be a 1-hour workshop.
Keep us informed.
But if we think we need a little more time, we would start at 3:30. So if your calendars look open, it'll be 3:30 or 4. We'll
Yep.
see what they recommend.
Great.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you. Good.
In that case, we're adjourned.